All right, let's get this thing started. Welcome, everyone. I am so incredibly thrilled that you're all here and grateful that you've all chosen to spend your time with us today. We should have about 70 people or so joining throughout the morning or afternoon or evening as the case may be. And it just is, I couldn't be happier thinking of all of these smart and dedicated people coming together from around the world to help our kids. So first of all, let me say that I have never done anything like this before. I've never organized a conference. I've never spoken to this many people, probably. So I'm a little nervous, but we do have some AV support. So I hope we won't have any technical issues and everything will go smoothly. I do want to remind everybody that if you would like to access the translation services, you can click on the link in the chat or scan that QR code if you want to use your phone for it. And that'll take you to the website that will provide that translation. Also, if you have any technical issues, just feel free to type a message in the chat and we will try to help you out with that. All right, so first of all, I would like to share a fundraising video that we created for Rare Disease Day last year that shares a bit of our family's story and how we got started on this path to create the foundation.
This is where we met Tristan for the first time.
Tristan was born November 26, 2019, the youngest of our 4 boys. From the minute I saw him, I thought something looked a little off about his eyes, but none of the doctors or nurses mentioned anything or seemed concerned, so I didn't think too much more of it. When he was about 4 months old, we started noticing that he wasn't reaching for things or bearing weight on his legs like his brothers had. So we got him into PT and OT and figured he would catch up, as many children do. He's not that far behind physically, so we were completely unprepared for the severity of the diagnosis. The one that hit me hardest was the fact that he would probably never speak. I don't know why, but in all of my wildest, worst case scenarios, it never even crossed my mind that my little boy wouldn't be able to talk to me. It took a long time for it to start to sink in. That first month, every single day, it was a fresh gut punch. I would wake up in the morning, fine for a second, and then suddenly it would all come rushing back in and it would literally take my breath away. And then, about a month after the diagnosis, he had his first seizure.
When I pulled up to the house, I actually heard the sirens coming down the street as I came in. I'll never forget when I walked in to the house and saw Colt at the top of the stairs and the look on his face said, Daddy, something's wrong with Tristy. I rushed up the stairs and of course fearing the worst and didn't know what I was going to find, and I come in, Michelle's over Tristan, he's on the ground, and she's trying to calm him down, stroking his head and singing to him, trying to get him to start breathing. And I mean, Michelle was a rock star that day. The paramedics and the firefighters, they followed me into the house afterwards and they got him on oxygen and put him in the ambulance and rushed him to the hospital with Michelle. It's just, that's when it all hit me. This is real. Tristan has this life-shattering disorder, and our family's lives will never be the same.
I've had to almost completely give up my private practice because of all the therapies and doctor appointments and exercises. He's in therapy 5 days a week, hours a day, but the progress is painfully slow. As he's gotten older, it's become more and more clear how impaired his little brain is. He works so hard to learn things, but even when something finally clicks, and he's been doing it consistently for weeks, it can suddenly vanish. And if you ask him to try to say or do something that he used to know, it totally breaks my heart. He's looking, his eyes are darting all over your face, his mouth is moving, he's breathing hard.
I mean, he's trying so hard, he just can't get his body to cooperate.
Tristan is the sweetest, most loving little person. He's always toddling over to lay his head in our laps or grab us as we're walking by. When he's alert and engaged, he's such a happy, affectionate little love bug. But a lot of the time, he's just off in his own world, kind of checked out, zoned out, like at Christmas. All the other kids were so excited and tearing into presents, and he's just sitting there, staring off into space. I just want so desperately for him to be able to participate in things with our family and enjoy things with the rest of us.
Thinking about the future is pretty overwhelming. I mean, these kids can't ever be left alone. They can't feed themselves. They can't ever even be potty trained.
And it just gets harder as they get older. I mean, just imagine having a Kevin-sized toddler for the rest of your life. It becomes very difficult to do anything as a family. We see with other families, they try to do something as simple as going to a game, and they end up spending the whole time trying to keep their full-grown kid from grabbing other people's food or climbing over the seats. It would be one thing if these kids were happy and healthy overall, but it doesn't seem like most of them are. Many will go months where they only sleep a few hours a night. Lots of the kids are on anxiety meds for agitation, and some will go through periods where they have hours-long crying spells every day. And of course, it can be impossible to figure out the problem because they can't tell you if they're in pain or what's going on. After spending every spare minute for almost a year researching KCNH1 and contacting scientists all over the world, we've learned that there's a clear path forward for KCNH1. It's a very good candidate for gene expression therapy. In other similar disorders that have been treated with this therapy, kids have gone from wheelchair-bound to walking, nonverbal to verbal, multiple seizures a day to seizure-free.
The technology exists, but the funding doesn't. As far as traditional drug development is concerned, KCNH1 is too rare to care. That's why it's up to us to make this happen. We need to raise $1 million to cure KCNH1.
All right, so that's where we were 1 year ago, a little less than a year ago, actually. We had just created the foundation and started to fundraise. And within about 6 or 9 months of that, our foundation had funded the design, manufacture, and screening of a batch of antisense oligonucleotides and identified a couple of hits. We had funded a repurposed drug screen that also has identified a couple of interesting hits. We have created some invaluable models like iPSC-induced pluripotent stem cell lines. that can be used to test these potential treatments. And maybe most importantly to an impatient parent, we were able to start our son Tristan on a repurposed drug. Dr. Perlstein has developed our roadmap, and he will be sharing that, but basically we have a 3-step approach that we're taking to identifying and developing treatments. And the first step is repurposed drugs, repurposed medications that could potentially be accessed fairly quickly. And step 2 will be the development of antisense oligonucleotides. And then long-term, our goal is base editing or gene editing that will actually correct that single incorrect nucleotide that causes our kids so many problems. So Dr. Perlstein will be sharing about our ASO project. So I'll focus on the repurposed drug screen. And first of all, because it happened, or we started on it first, Tristan's case or experience trying a repurposed drug. So thanks to all the basic research that many of you here had done, we were able to get Tristan access to a translational medicine fairly quickly, not quickly enough for an impatient parent, but fairly quickly. And so pretty soon after Tristan was diagnosed, I started, of course, staying up all night, reading all the KCNH1 articles I could find and contacting researchers. And within a few months, we had been told about a existing FDA-approved small molecule medication that is known to inhibit the channel encoded by KCNH1, KV10.1. And even though this medication is an old generic FDA-approved med that's actually on label for pediatric populations, it took us a full year of doing very thorough background before starting him on this investigational med. So we did lots of in vitro tests, lots of medical tests and consultations with lots of doctors. We did developmental testing to get a baseline. And then finally, this past summer, we were able to start him on the medication. And we went in with pretty guarded expectations, not necessarily expecting much. And within a couple of days, we seemed to be noticing that he was making better eye contact. And then within a couple more days, he started picking up new skills at a rate we had never, ever seen. This is a kid who has been rated in the less than 0.1 percentile cognitively and adaptively. So learning anything is very hard for him. His progress is extremely slow. And for a couple of weeks after he started the medication, he was learning new skills every single day. But then it was things like, nothing we would have necessarily thought of or looked for. It was things like figuring out how to open a door handle, which for a kid like him is a very complex motor task. He has to brace himself. He has to pull down with one hand, move his body out of the way and pull back toward himself. I was just shocked when he learned that after me showing it to him once. He learned many of these skills that he showed those first 2 weeks were things that we had been working on in therapies for weeks, months, or even years. He figured out, or finally it clicked, how to go down it, scooch himself to the edge and go down a slide by himself. Things like manipulating a spoon into his mouth finally clicked after a year of working on it. One thing that really surprised us was, we go through our day just narrating to him, and usually he seems to pay no attention. And my husband said, "Tristan, do you want to read a book?" And he looked around on the ground, saw a book, and went over and tried to pick it up. So it, again, obviously, we all know without a placebo-controlled trial, you can't assume anything, you can't know anything, but it seemed pretty promising at first, and then it stopped. And most of the skills that he had learned, he maintained, but it was the rate of skill acquisition that gradually tapered off and kind of returned back to his baseline, which is very, very slow. So we increased, again, after consulting everyone, we increased the dose and did not see the same thing. We did not see any further benefit. So that just goes to show how complex all of this is. The current status is we're going to be very gradually tapering him off, washing it out, and then reintroducing at the same lower dose, see if we get the same effect. But I wanted to share this case example with you for a couple of reasons. First of all, to all the families here, you know, to me, even though it's completely anecdotal, it gives me hope that these kinds of approaches and these kinds of treatments can help, they can work. But it's not going to be quick and easy. It's going to be complicated and maybe messy. You know, we might, when we get to treatments in the future, it might easily work for some kids and not for other kids, or have side effects that, you know, aren't worth it. For the researchers and doctors in the audience, I think it goes to show how hard it's going to be to identify meaningful endpoints. So, you know, something like opening a door handle or going down a slide, that it's huge for Tristan, but that's not going to show up on any Vineland or Bailey or standardized measure. So it's, you know, it's very meaningful for him, but it's going to be really challenging to find ways to measure outcomes. Okay, so moving on, Jeff, if you could share the rare base slide. Okay, so one of the main projects that we did this year was contracting with a biotech company their whole mission is to get treatments to rare disease patients as quickly as possible. And so their approach is to, well, they take patient-derived cell lines and start developing those into iPSCs. Meanwhile, they get the results from their function platform, which for that they used wild-type iPSCs neurons to screen, I believe, about 4,000 approved medications against 15,000 genes, with the goal of identifying compounds that either up or down regulate the gene. And so this process took several months, and we just got our results recently. And indeed, they did identify several compounds that modulate the gene, some that both up and down regulated. So the next step will be to validate those in patient-derived cell lines and see if those compounds can rescue the phenotype and correct the dysfunctions. So that's kind of an overview of what we've been focusing on with the foundation the past year. Finally, I would just like to really encourage the families today. It's going to be a lot of science. I know it's kind of science heavy. I would really encourage you to try to absorb it as much as you can. Follow up with questions if you have them. It's going to be really important as we move toward treatment for everyone to know their kid's mutation, because a lot of the treatments will depend on the particular function of your kid's mutation. And, you know, pitch in, get involved. All of this research is incredibly expensive, and it's going to take all of us as a team working together, whether that's, you know, hosting a bake sale or doing a Facebook birthday fundraiser, all the way up to, I hope, you know, to finally be put on some of our first big in-person fundraising events this year. But one of the biggest and most important ways that you all as families can contribute and advance the science is by sharing your patient data. It is just crucial to the long-term prospects of getting treatments to our kids. Our kids' disorder is ultra rare. There have been a few papers published on them, but there is so much that we don't know and that the medical community doesn't know. And the only way they can learn about it is for us to share it with them. So I would really encourage, and that's sharing things like everything from what symptoms your kids have, whether, do they have GI issues, heart issues, other things that go along with the main symptoms of KCNH1. Everything from symptoms to when they hit their milestones to what meds work and what meds don't. And as they age, what that looks like, because we don't have a lot of information about that. And so that will be one of the biggest ways that you can help support the research, is taking the time to, one of my biggest goals for the foundation for the coming year is to launch a registry or natural history study. And then I'll need every one of you families to take the time to, set up a profile that can link your kids' medical records, or maybe fill out an occasional survey about their status or their symptoms or their seizures or whatever the case may be. So I just want to thank you all again so much for coming today, and we will move on now to some of our fantastic presenters.